April, you're muted.
You know what? It's great when you talk and you think you'd think after what, 5 years of us having these online calls that we would figure out muting by now, but nope, even those of us who do this all day. We are so excited to see all of you joining the call. We'll get started in just a few minutes, probably a minute or two. Just waiting for a few more folks to trickle in, then we'll get started. Awesome. We have over 200 folks in the room. That's so exciting. Just a flag to folks, we are gonna hold our program tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. They'll go to us on the hosts and panelists side. If we can answer them directly to you, we will try to. If not, we'll have a follow-up email tomorrow that will have all of the links and actions that you can take, as well as a link to a recording of this call. And you'll be able to reply to that if you have any additional questions that you feel like were not answered, or really anything else that you want to check in with us about. Yeah, I think it makes sense to kick us off. Hi, everyone. Oh, I did not mean to do that. I just don't let me press any more buttons. Um, I'm April Glick-Polito. I am our communications coordinator here at Citizen Action of New York. And I have also been helping to lead our federal messaging and some of our strategy work over the past year. I am also a proud union member, a mom to a very energetic toddler who just turned 3 yesterday, and someone who has been a New Yorker for over 14 years. Um, I personally come from a working class background. I waited tables and tended bar for over 10 years. Shout out AOC. So I know what it's like to feel like politics is happening to you, not with you or for you. And that's why I do this work, and it matters to me because organizing and building power and changing the story from a communications perspective is how we shift that dynamic. It's how we take back the power and make sure that our voices are not only heard, but they can't ignore us. So thank you again, everyone, for taking action today. Citizen Action of New York, if you're not already familiar with us, we have always been about building power in our communities across New York, from the grassroots up. We have fought and won in Albany on housing, education, childcare, healthcare, and democracy. But right now, we're seeing attacks from Washington that threaten to undo so much of that progress. And we can't afford to sit back. The MAGA-led federal government is pushing devastating budget cuts, hundreds of billions from Medicaid, food assistance, public housing, education, and more. And they're pairing those cuts with a dangerous authoritarian agenda, using force against peaceful protesters, ramping up surveillance, and trying to silence political opponents. This fight is not just about numbers on a spreadsheet or eggs. It's about what kind of country we live in and who it's built to serve. That's why we're here tonight. The goal of this call is not just to talk at you, inform you, do stuff that you could see on doom scrolling or reading the news. It's to mobilize you. It's to make it easier and accessible for you to plug in, raise your voices, and organize in our own communities. Because federal politics shouldn't be and doesn't have to be distant or confusing. The truth is, they count on us feeling overwhelmed, disengaged, and disconnected from each other. They want us fighting each other so that we don't fight them. But we know better. And so tonight we're here to break it all down. What's at stake? What decisions are happening in DC that are hitting our neighborhoods here in New York? And most importantly, what we and you can do about it. Whether it is calling your member of Congress, shout out Representative Riley, who's in the room here, showing up at a local event, or just talking to your friends and family, there is a role for you in this movement. No action is too small when we're taking it together. So thank you for being here. We hope this is not just a standard Zoom call. Uh, you're joining a growing community of people here who believe in justice, dignity, and collective power. And we're so glad you're here. So let's get into it. Let me kick it over to our very own Southern Tier lead organizer, Revo Root, who is an absolute superstar. So I'll kick it over to Revo.
Buddy, thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Revo Root, and I'm a lead organizer with Citizen Action of New York in the Southern Tier. So, from early 2023 through the 2024 election, we made it our mission to kick what I like to call the minnow, moderate in name only, Mark Molinaro out of office. Over the course of our 18-month campaign in New York 19, we organized more than 30 protests, engaged in deep canvassing, knocking on over 65,000 doors, and made over 325,000 phone calls. We've continued our work this year, having multiple rallies and protests, and have had hundreds of people attend, maintaining coalitions with partner organizations like Indivisible, AFL-CIO, 1199 SEIU, and CWA, to name a few. And so we're also still working and involved in our local elections this year with a packed endorsement list in the Southern Tier in Binghamton, with opportunities coming up to help us get out the vote for races up and down the ballot. Our upcoming rallies are No King's Day events in Ithaca and Binghamton in partnership with Indivisible Binghamton and Indivisible Tompkins. And if you're interested, I think April is going to be dropping the links in the chat right now. So after all this work from our membership, we are proud to say that Josh Riley is our Congress member. Congressman Riley is fighting for working people. He's committed to protecting SNAP, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. He believes the wealthy should finally pay their fair share. He's also backing that up with action, which I always say is the most important thing from our representatives, backing that up with action by co-sponsoring pro-worker legislation like the PRO Act to strengthen union rights and collective bargaining, the Social Security Expansion Act to protect and enhance retirement benefits. Congressman Riley has also sponsored bills to rein in billionaire abuse, like preventing people like Elon Musk from secretly accessing our federal financial systems. So Congressman Riley is standing up for working class people, and I'm proud to introduce him today. And without further ado, I'm going to swing it over to Congressman Riley.
Hey, everyone. Can folks hear me okay? Thumbs up if you can. Good. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for doing this, Revo. I love you, man. Seriously, you work as hard as anybody to get good policies enacted, to win elections. Really appreciate that you're always just a quick phone call away for a gut check and all the work you're doing. And to everybody who's on this call tonight, really so glad to be with you. What I was hoping to do with my time, just very briefly, I think I probably know most of you on the call, but for those of you who don't, just going to give you my background really quickly. I want to talk to you a little bit about the district and how incredible it was that we won this seat with your help in 2024, and then give you a quick update on some of the fights that we're fighting in Congress. So I think most of you know this about me. I grew up in West Endicott, just outside of Binghamton, a working class neighborhood. My family has been there for over 100 years, working in the factories. We had shoe factory for a while, IBM for a while. I grew up in an EJ house, a 900 square foot house in a working class community. And my politics have been shaped by what I saw growing up, seeing plants close, seeing tens of thousands of jobs shipped overseas, the opioid epidemic ripped through the community, the child poverty rate skyrocketing. And at the same time, I delivered the newspapers in the morning and I saw headlines about corporate profits that were soaring. Income inequality today is as bad as it's ever been. The top 1% have more wealth than the entire middle class combined. That's what shaped my politics. It's what got me into office. And got me into my first campaign. Boy, we fought incredibly hard and accomplished something really special together to win this seat in 2024. I think you all know the district I represent, New York's 19th district. It's pretty evenly divided, with about a third Democrats, a third Republicans, and a third independents. I'm told, and we're confirming this, that it's the fourth most rural district in the entire country when you look at it in terms of the percentage of people who are living in rural communities. About 65% of the folks I represent live in rural communities, which is one of the highest percentages in the country. We represent 178 towns, from Trumansburg in the west up through Rensselaer County in the east. And our campaign during the last cycle, you can imagine a district that's that big. Our race turned out to be the most expensive House race in the whole country. Point of pride, Elon Musk came in and spent over $1 million against us down the stretch in our last race. And we were able to overcome that because of the work that you all did on this call. We knocked over 250,000 doors. Elon Musk can throw unlimited amounts of money at us, but when we have the type of organizing and grassroots mobilization that Citizen Action puts together, that you all put together, we were able to overcome that. 250,000 doors is a huge number. I think it's one of the highest numbers of any red to blue campaign in the country. And to do it in rural upstate New York is an incredible, incredible accomplishment. One of the facts that I share with folks that I'm most proud of from our race, to sort of demonstrate that we defied the odds together and won the race as underdogs together, is this. There's an organization called Split Ticket. They do a lot of election forecasting, a lot of modeling, and they run a lot of numbers to project who should win elections. After the election is over, they do something where they go back and rerun all the models without making the assumptions that you have to make leading up. So at that point, you know who turned out to vote, you know about demographic shifts, and you're able to rerun the models and show how every race should have turned out. And Split Ticket, after our election, ran their models and found that the Republican incumbent should have won our race by 2 points. And instead, we won it by 2 points. You don't do that without a massive grassroots organizing effort, which is why the work that Citizen Action and Revo and so many others are doing is so important. And it really, really matters. I want to just share with you some of the fights that I'm in the middle of here in Congress. Working that hard to win the seat matters if we're using the office to advance an agenda that works for working people. And that's what I strive to do every single day. Revo mentioned some of the work I'm doing to protect access to Social Security. This administration has literally referred to it as a Ponzi scheme. And I represent tons of seniors across the district who know that they earned these benefits. So I have legislation to get people like Elon Musk out of our sensitive payment systems, keep the Social Security offices open, keep the phone lines open, keep your Social Security checks coming. I even have a bill called the You Earned It, You Keep It Act, which would end the tax on Social Security benefits and deliver one of the biggest tax cuts to seniors in the history of the country. We've seen attacks from this administration on programs and services that folks across upstate New York, working folks across upstate New York, need and depend on. We've seen Job Corps under attack in the last couple of weeks. The administration tried to dismantle the Department of Education. The administration tried to get rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. In each of those cases and a whole bunch of others, I've been involved in litigation to stop the administration from some of the worst attacks that it would have on those organizations that folks really need. We're in the minority here as Democrats, but that is not an excuse to not fight as hard as we can in every way that we can. And going into the courts has been one effective way to do it. We've had over about 180 court orders entered to stop or at least pause some of the administration's attacks on things like education and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Revo mentioned the big fight that we're having today is with respect to healthcare. About 33% of the folks in our district are on Medicaid. 40% of the kids in our districts are on Medicaid. Half the babies, 70% of the seniors in assisted living facilities are on Medicaid. And the Republican budget would rip hundreds of billions of dollars worth of healthcare away from those folks. It would destroy our rural hospitals, and it's all being done in service of massive tax cuts, trillions of dollars in tax cuts to people who don't need it. And so at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 weeks ago, when this bill was being debated through the night, I went to the House floor. I offered an amendment that said, instead of ripping healthcare away from kids and working families, instead of cutting SNAP benefits for kids and working families, why don't we finally negotiate the cost of prescription drugs in this country, lower the cost of prescription drugs, use those savings to deliver tax cuts for people who actually need it, folks who get the child tax credit, for example. Of course, that vote failed because the pharmaceutical industry comes in here with all their lobbyists and all their super PAC money and sets the agenda. But for me, it was important in the middle of the night to stand up and have that fight. And at the end of the day, we lost that vote, the reconciliation bill, by just one vote. So every single door that folks are out knocking, every single phone call that's being made, it's a reminder how important every single one of these seats are. I want to mention one last bill that I'm working on because I think one of the most important things that's happening right now in this country are attacks on basic constitutional rights and some of the foundational values that we have. In this country, no matter who you are, no matter what you are accused of, you are entitled to due process. That is a fundamental part of being an American. It's a fundamental part of our Constitution. That is what makes America great, is the idea that we have due process in this country. But what we're seeing right now out of this administration, we're seeing it, I think, on TV, are attacks on basic rights. And so I've introduced legislation with Jamie Raskin that would give our federal courts more tools to enforce their orders. A lot of folks have told me they're really concerned about what would happen if the administration openly defies court orders. And so our legislation puts the United States Marshal Service into the courts so that they respond to the judiciary and not to Pam Bondi. So those are a handful of examples. We could go through a bunch of them, but the main thing I want to share with you all is how special it is that we were able to flip this seat from red to blue, how hard that was, and how much all of your work paid off to make that happen, why it matters in terms of the work we're doing day to day. And I want to leave you just with just one last thing, which is this. We are in just unprecedented times right now. In the first 60 business days of me getting sworn in, our office received 70,000 telephone calls. 60 days, 70,000 calls. You can do the math on that. It's like the phone ringing 3 times every minute, every hour of the day. People have told me that they're really scared. People are frustrated. People are angry. And I get it. And I hear you. And I'm with you. I just want to share the perspective that I am in this moment where things are really hard. I'm very, very hopeful about us as a country and us as a community. And I say that because all of you are here tonight. I mean, it's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. You guys could be doing anything. And there's hundreds of people on this phone call because you're engaged and you care and you've put in the work in the past and you're going to put in the work in the future. I would be scared and terrified if we did an event like this and nobody came. If I was going out to events across the district and there was nobody there. But what I'm seeing in this moment of unprecedented challenge and adversity, I am seeing our community do what our community does, which is pull together, have each other's backs, support each other, lift each other up. And in moments of adversity, when you're tested, you either push through it and overcome it or you cower. And what I'm seeing is all of us together, pulling together and pushing through it. And for that, I love being in this fight with all of you. I really appreciate all your support as we're doing this work. And keep it up. And Revo, thank you again for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Representative Riley. We really appreciate you joining us this evening. I'll let you head off for the evening. We know you have lots of stuff to do in the fight, and we really appreciate you taking the time to.
I'd rather spend the whole night here with you guys, but I do have to run off to a couple of things. But stay really close. Anything y'all need from me, let me know how I can be helpful to you all too.
Thank you so much, Representative. Have a great night. So I realized I was so excited to get everyone on the call tonight that I forgot to tell you what our specific calls to action are. So I'm just really quickly going to drop in these links that we have seen. Andrew dropped these in the chat earlier. Become a volunteer is just a way to share your interest in doing the movement work, share some of the skills that you have and things that you might want to volunteer for, social media, say that you want to go to an event in person, you want to help with virtual events. It's a great sign-on sheet. We have a donation form if you could chip it. If you are able to chip in, we know that there's a lot going on. We'd love any support for the work. And then we have our events link so you can sign up for all of our events, including lots of events to fight for our healthcare. So I'm going to be introducing up next our fantastic health campaigns manager, Ursula Rosum, who is out there every day spreading the word about these draconian Medicaid cuts. Ursula, I will kick it over to you.
Thanks so much, April. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. Can you hear me okay? Can someone give me a thumbs up?
Yep, we are good, Ursula.
Okay, awesome. So before I get into what talking about the fight to stop the Medicaid cuts, I would just love to know who's all on the call with us tonight. I think if you've been around Citizen Action and part of social movements and part of this fight to stop the cuts to healthcare, you've probably heard us talking about how important it is to talk about our own personal experiences and to share our stories. And I'm just like really curious how people who are joining tonight are accessing healthcare. Wow, so it looks like we have a lot of folks here. I'm going to end the poll in like 10 seconds. A lot of people are responding. While you're responding to the poll, I'll just introduce myself really briefly. Like April said, I'm the Ursula Rosum. I'm the Health Campaigns Manager. I'm based in Syracuse, New York, my hometown. I first got involved with Citizen Action back in 2008 during Obama's first campaign for office for president. I was registering voters in Syracuse. And that year we registered 5,000 people and just for that one election. And we were able to flip a longtime Republican congressional seat. And for me, it was really eye-opening because it was the first time that I saw what real people power can accomplish. And that's really what brought me into this work, seeing that organizations like Citizen Action are a place where if you can come together with like-minded people and fight for change and win change. And right now we are in a fight really for our lives to protect our healthcare. So thank you everyone for doing the poll. I'm not sure if people can see. We have a lot of folks on here with all sorts of healthcare, all sorts of sources of healthcare. People that use Medicaid and Medicare, Essential Plan, a lot of folks here getting your healthcare through employer coverage. Thank you for sharing. So we're here tonight to talk about how we're organizing in New York to fight back against the horrible things the Trump administration and Republicans in Congress are doing. And when they came into office, Republicans in Congress really doubled down on their long-standing goal, which is to cut Medicaid funding and give more tax breaks to the super rich. And Andrew, I'm wondering if you could share the slides that I prepared. Great. They're coming. Yeah. So like Representative Riley said, these people on the screen, all of New York's Republican Congress members voted in the middle of the night to pass a budget that we call it the billionaire handout budget bill, and it won by a single vote. So all of these folks, the photo's not really great, but if you're from a Republican district, you probably recognize Mike Lawler, Claudia Tenney, Nicole Malliotakis, Nick Langworthy, Garbarino, and Lolota. So all of the Republicans representing New York in Congress voted to cut health care. And let me just tell you a little bit more of what's in that bill. And like Representative Riley said, they voted in the middle of the night and they passed a budget that did all this stuff. I made these slides because some of you, if you're like me, visual aids help really grasp the information. So they voted for $880 billion in Medicaid cuts over 10 years, $230 billion cut from SNAP, new work reporting requirements that are going to add red tape, delays, and paperwork. Basically 490 to 500 billion in Medicare cuts over a decade because of the rules triggered by the impacts on the federal deficit of giving huge tax cuts to the super rich. So that's going to mean about a 4% cut across Medicare spending annually. So all of these things, they are going to impact doctors, or access to doctors. They're going to impact people's ability to pay for medicine, to access hospital care. All these cuts are huge. They're huge, and they're going to have big impacts on everyone who uses Medicaid, SNAP, and Medicare. Next slide, please. And the Republican budget bill is going to have really, there have been analysis of that there's going to have negative impacts on the state of New York. So according to the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan entity, New York would lose about $15.4 billion a year. That's billion in federal healthcare funding. It's been estimated that 1.5 million New Yorkers would lose coverage, including children, seniors, low-wage workers. Funding for the Essential Plan would be gutted. Essential Plan covers 1.6 million people. The funding cuts are projected to lead to hospital closures because if so many people that are using Medicaid, all of a sudden funding's not coming, it's going to impact hospital budgets. And the Fiscal Policy Institute has estimated that it would cost 215,000 healthcare jobs in New York State. Also, I want to say a little bit more about the Medicaid work reporting requirements. Those alone, this is something invented to make it harder for people to get covered, and it would actually cost New York State $500 million to implement the bureaucracy to enforce the new work reporting requirements. And as anyone that uses a public benefit program like Medicaid, food stamps, you know that there already are reporting requirements. So all this is happening because they want to give more tax cuts to the super rich. And Trump and the Republicans gave a big tax cuts to the super rich in 2017. And I don't know how well you can see the slide, but basically New York billionaires saw their wealth grow over $300 billion since the Trump tax cuts back in 2017. You can see that this is in millions. So Michael Bloomberg had his wealth double from, I'm squinting to see the slide, $47 billion to $104 billion. So basically we've seen billionaires get richer since the last Trump administration, and now they want to give more tax cuts to the super rich. And I really like this little photo from a protest because, yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. They're blaming immigrants. They're blaming low-wage workers who use Medicaid, really to pit working class people and low-income people against one another so that we won't blame the billionaires who are funding the campaigns, particularly of the New York Republican congressional delegation. But so this is bad, right? They're talking about how they want to cut all this money, all this funding for Medicaid. All these people are going to lose their health insurance. But I think that the silver lining, next slide, is that, oh, wait, this is more about how bad the tax cuts they're good for the rich. You can see here that most of the tax cuts are going to the richest Americans making more than $1 million per year. So actually one thing they tell us is that, oh, this is a middle class tax cut. Well, all of the benefits are going to, to go to the top. Next slide. But yeah, the silver lining is that the public is on our side. Poll after poll, people are rejecting the cuts to Medicaid, and in no congressional district in the country is there actually any support for gutting Medicaid or SNAP. And about 1 in 3 people know that what is in the Republican budget bill, and they hear about it, the more they dislike it. And that's where we come in. We know that if enough people speak out, Republicans will back down when they're hearing from their constituents, that there's opposition to this. Because, politicians, they want to get reelected. That's really in their self-interest. And so if they think no one's paying attention, they're going to continue voting for budgets that favor billionaires over our communities. They're hoping no one notices that voters eat up the propaganda that healthcare spending is wasteful. And all of us here, people who are paying attention and who care about one another and care about people in our community, it's our job to make sure people know what's going on and people know what's at stake. Next slide. Next slide. So yeah, our job right now is to make sure people know what's going on, that we alert the public. And that's what we've been doing with many of you and with our partners across the state through town halls and rallies and press conferences, letter to the editor campaigns, tabling at events. And really what we need to be doing is alerting and reaching more people, because voters deserve to know that their representatives are voting to take away health care. The photo on the screen is from a rally in Corning outside of Nick Langworthy's office, where thousands of people in the district use Medicaid, use food stamps. So why is he voting for a budget that supports New York's billionaires rather than working class people in his district? And so that's, as an organization, Citizen Action and the organizing team here, our job is to make sure that, we have the resources to all go out in our community and educate and organize people to fight back. And that's the assignment right now. We have from now until July to impact the next phase of the process. The Republican budget bill is in the Senate now. And they're planning to vote on that, I think, before the end of the month. And then it's going to go back to the House for a final vote, maybe as soon as 4th of July, probably mid-July. So we really have from now through the end of the month to think about, who do we know? Who can I activate to bring into this fight? Who will be impacted by the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and the essential plan? We have so many resources, digital and printable. And so it's really up to you. Who do you know? Where are you connected in your community where we can reach normal people who aren't joining Zoom calls like this because they're cooking dinner or picking up their kids or going to their third job? And so I think, we believe that there's something for everyone to do in the movement, to get in where you fit in. One of the things that is also really powerful that everyone can do is share your healthcare story. We're gonna drop the link in the chat and share it. If you use a public healthcare program, particularly Medicaid, Medicare, or the Affordable Care Act, sharing our stories is one of the most powerful things we can do. It's how we can fight back and really change the narrative by sharing our lived truth, not just with statistics and facts, but with stories that other people can relate to. And that's one of the reasons I'm excited to introduce a Citizen Action member who's really been at the center of the fight back to protect Medicaid down in Staten Island, Congressional District 11. I want to introduce Cecilia DeSalle. She's a Staten Island leader, a mother, a Medicaid user and survivor who's going to share why Medicaid is so important for her and why she's part of the fight. Oh,
Y'all can hear me?
hey, Cecilia.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Cecilia DeSalle. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I'm now the vice president of Stapleton Housing. I basically am fighting for my Medicaid. I'm fighting for also my children's Medicaid, for their mental health as well. Basically, I'm going to share my story tonight with you all. And hopefully something to come out of the story and everybody else will start fighting as well, harder, and keep going. Okay, hello, my name is Cecilia DeSalle. I have lived in Staten Island. I am a proud mother of 3 kings that God has blessed me with. I am also a survivor of multiple myeloma, a cancer of the bone marrow. I found out I had it back in 2021. After being rushed to the emergency room, I didn't know what was going on. I was scared, I was in pain, and I was away from my children for 2 whole months. During the time I was on Medicaid, I thank God I was Medicaid paid for my hospital stay, my chemotherapy, my stem cell treatment, everything I needed to fight for my life. As a single mother, there's no way I could have afforded that care on my own. With the help of my doctors, my family, and my faith, I got through it. Today, I am cancer free, back at home with my boys, sleeping in my own bed and feeling better than I ever have in a long time. But I know I couldn't have made it without Medicaid. That's why I'm here tonight on this call with you all, because I want more people to understand how much this care matters and how much we matter. In April, I went to Washington, D.C. with Citizen Action of New York and People's Action. I've never done anything like this before. I was nervous. I didn't think I had anything important to say. But when I got there and saw all those people standing together, I felt so shifted. Citizen Action made me feel like I belong, like my voice mattered. And when I spoke up, it felt good. I felt strong. I felt like I was part of a movement bigger than just me. The trip showed me I'm not just a survivor. I'm someone who can stand up and speak out. And I want everyone on this call to know you can feel that too. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up like I did and trust that your voice matters, because it does. I found my voice. I found my power in community. And I hope tonight helps you find a little of that too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. I always love to hear you chat with us because, like, I'm so excited that you have felt empowered to do this work. And that's just a testament to um, how powerful an organizer Ursula is to help mobilize and help you tell that story. And we're just so grateful for you. I'm going to drop in one more time these links for our care coverage, and also just remind folks that we do have those links going around. I think Andrew's going to drop them in the chat, our volunteer form, our support form, and our events form. Next up, speaking to us, we're really excited tonight from Planned Parenthood Empire State Acts, here to talk about reproductive justice and the way that these attacks on our care affect all different facets of justice across the state. I'm super excited to kick it over to Robin Golston from Planned Parenthood. Thanks so much for joining us, Robin.
Thank you so much, April. Really appreciate being here, and thank you all for being on tonight. I know you have a lot of things going on right now, but this work is so important. To hear Cecilia's story just shows how personal this is for so many people and how this will impact negatively so many people's lives. So, just going to get right into it. Not the best news, but just want to make sure also people are informed and also can spread the word, because there's so many egregious things in this bill, and the egregious cuts that they're doing to Medicaid. They are also targeting Planned Parenthood and trying to block patients from getting care. If their effort to defund Planned Parenthood is successful, the impact will be felt across the country. More than 1 million women, people of color, rural communities, and people with low incomes could lose access to care. If Planned Parenthood is defunded, nearly 200 health centers are at risk of closure, and more than 1.1 million patients could lose access to birth control, wellness visits, STI tests, treatment, gender-affirming care, and cancer screenings across the country. More than 90% of health centers are at risk of closure in states where abortion is still legal, places like New York. The number of Planned Parenthood health centers in abortion access states could be cut in half. These lawmakers are willing to sacrifice access to affordable health care for people across the country and here in New York because of their opposition to abortion. even though it will cost nearly $300 million in additional spending, according to the CBO. So just to share the impacts of what is happening in New York, in 2023, New York Planned Parenthood provided over 147,000 patients with birth control, over 331,000 STI tests, over 11,000 gender affirming care visits, and over 50,000 patients with abortion care. Over 100,000 New Yorkers who have Medicaid coverage that rely on Planned Parenthood could be impacted and not have access to that care. These cuts can jeopardize access to care and devastate the reproductive and sexual health safety net across the state. They are trying to do this, and it's a backdoor way to cut access to abortion and all reproductive health care services. And this is not what the general public wants. Well over 70% of Americans support access to reproductive health care, including abortion nationally. They are not representing their constituents. They are just doing hate-filled control and not respecting people's bodily autonomy and choices that they make for themselves. But you can do your part by texting PROTECT to 22422 to be connected to your member of Congress and to tell them to fight back against attempts to defund Planned Parenthood and these devastating Medicaid cuts. They've tried this before and they've failed, and we need to make sure that they fail again. This fight is not over until it's over. So help us stop this terrible bill from moving forward. So thank you so much, and thanks so much for taking the time and the other speakers. Happy to be here.
Thanks so much, Robin. And I dropped in the chat the links for everyone to take action. They'll also be included. We're having a follow-up email go out tomorrow to make sure that anything that you didn't save in the chat, you have access to and you can get plugged in. I'm going to kick it over to our climate justice organizer, Ethan Gormley.
Hey everybody, how are we doing? My name is Ethan Gormley, and I'm a climate justice organizer with Citizen Action based here in Central New York. So to start, I'll remind everyone that on his first day in office in his second term, the president declared a national energy emergency. He did this to reward his oil industry donors and billionaire buddies by stepping up our nation's production of dirty and dangerous fossil fuels like oil and like gas. Like so much of what the president says, I know everyone in this call knows this by now, this claim of an energy emergency was a lie. It was a lie created to justify his destructive and authoritarian policies. In fact, there is no energy emergency as he described it. The US is actually a net exporter of fossil fuels and already produces more oil and gas than any other country in the world. However, we do have a real emergency, a real crisis, and that's the climate crisis. And the climate change denier in the Oval Office, of course, is ignoring it, and he's making it worse. This is a president who said before his first election that the climate crisis was a hoax created by the Chinese. But we know the truth. Everyone in this call I know knows this. The effects of climate change are already here. Last year was the hottest year on record, and scientists around the world are warning that we are getting closer and closer to the tipping point, the point at which the damage to our Earth from even hotter temperatures and storms will be irreversible. In a global crisis like this, we expect our government to protect its people. But unfortunately, this federal administration isn't standing up to big corporate polluters and adequately addressing the climate crisis. And let's remind ourselves, this isn't a far off crisis, right? We're already seeing the impacts across New York State, hitting low to moderate income people the hardest already. We're talking about deadly storms in Buffalo, Hurricane Sandy in New York City and downstate, and Irene in central New York and the Capital District a decade ago, and we're paying for it. Regular New Yorkers are paying for it in billions of dollars in damages to our homes, our businesses, our public infrastructure, and we're paying for it with lives lost. All this while the oil and gas billionaires continue to pollute our communities, fuel the climate crisis, and raise our bills so they can make money hand over fist. The federal administration is intent on continuing this effort with horrible consequences for everyday New Yorkers, and that's why we're standing up. One of our members that I'm so proud to introduce today is Annalise Adams. Annalise has been standing up with us. She's been active in attending events, writing and publishing letters to the editor in her local paper, leading meetings with state legislators, and she's even helped organize local groups from across central New York to better collaborate and work together toward achieving climate justice. Now, Annalise, she's going to dig into the MAGA budget bill. Go ahead, take it away.
Thanks so much, Ethan. So in 2022, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act. And as you probably know, the IRA is the most ambitious climate legislation in US history. Now the Republicans want to destroy that progress. In the House reconciliation bill passed in April, the US House Republican majority echoed the climate denialism of Trump. And so the goal of the president and the US Republicans is simple. They want to destroy the progress that the US made on addressing the climate crisis with the passage of the IRA. And here's just a few of the horrible provisions of the House Reconciliation Bill law and how they will impact us as New Yorkers. The clean electricity tax credits, those designed to increase the use of clean electricity resources would be repealed. Tax credits designed to get businesses to increase manufacturing of clean energy like wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries would be phased out more quickly than in current law. And incentives that encourage energy efficiency investments in rooftop solar would be enormously cut. And the 7,500 credit that consumers can currently receive to purchase new electric vehicles would be phased out for most of them at the end of this year and entirely after 2026. And so obviously these cuts would have major impacts on everyday New Yorkers, such as the electricity prices will increase for families and businesses. One consequence of the expected significant cut to renewable energy production in the bill is that electricity prices will go up 6.5% in New York. And to make matters worse, since consumers will be using more electricity due to cuts in energy efficiency, our bills are likely to go up as well, more than 6.5%. Billions of clean energy projects nationwide will be abandoned, and ironically, 3/4 of these lost investment projects will be in Republican congressional districts. This means hundreds of thousands of jobs will also be lost nationwide. The solar industry alone projects that 330 jobs will be lost by 2028, which is just 3 years from now. And lastly, as already mentioned, prices for electric vehicles will likely significantly rise, making them unaffordable for many New Yorkers as the $7,500 EV tax credit phases out and is eliminated at the end of 2026.
Thanks so much, Annalise. As you all can see from what Annalise just mentioned, there's going to be real consequences from this MAGA budget bill, and we're going to be feeling it across New York. So that's why we're fighting back. In April, Citizen Action organized a rally in Syracuse with over 16 local organizations to stand up to the hostile federal administration and to demand climate leadership in New York. Then just last week, we held press conferences and testified at public hearings in Syracuse and Albany to demand that New York follow its climate law, make polluters pay so that we can invest much needed money back into our homes and our neighborhoods. A day later last week, Citizen Action members from Syracuse, Binghamton, and Albany came together for another mass mobilization at the state capitol to support legislation to protect us from greedy utility companies trying to raise our rates and exacerbate the climate crisis. But we can't let up the pressure now. We must act with renewed urgency to demand that New York State becomes a true climate leader in the face of this terrible MAGA budget bill. So I really hope you'll join us for Citizen Action's next statewide Climate Justice Committee meeting. It's on Monday, June 23rd at 6 over Zoom. We'll talk about all the actions that we've taken this year, where we're going next, and most importantly, how you can take action with us. I'm really looking forward to meeting you and working together on this crucial fight ahead of us with the big bad budget bill and the oil and gas billionaires as we strive to make New York a true climate leader. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Ethan. I always love hearing Ethan talk about climate change. And just a reminder to everyone, because we are getting such great comments in the chat, this is just a 3 or 4 minute snippet of all the work that our fantastic organizers are doing, not the only work that we're doing. So there are lots of questions about other issues like climate justice, like really going into deep. And that's when I would say, check out that link right there, our volunteer intake form, fill out your volunteer form. Someone from our organization who is doing the work that you care about, So all of the work that you care about, you can plug in with the organization and take action in your own communities, because that's really where we build power, working in coalition with elected officials and labor leaders from the movement. So we have a federal employee here, Jess Sweet, who is also a union delegate in Troy and a part of the Federal Unionist Network. I'm going to kick it over to Jess Sweet.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jess. I am a proud federal worker, a generational federal worker, in fact, a union member, and I advocate for the working class. I do have to preface tonight with saying my words don't represent the agency I work for or the union that supports me every day. So I'm one of thousands of people who show up every day, not for profit, not for politics, but for public service. What's happening in DC is having real and devastating impacts here locally. Decades of anti-worker rhetoric has been weaponized by a fascist administration. They're using executive orders and budget cuts to strip away union rights, slash public agency funding, and dismantle the systems that millions of people rely on, including Social Security. The American Federation of Government Employees, or AFGE, sponsored a form letter urging Congress and the Senate to protect federal employee pay and benefits. The letter campaign is to remind the Senate that the bill sitting in front of them is going to destroy the foundation of the federal employees' retirement plan. This is the one that we contribute to every time we get paid. We're only around 20,000 signatures away from our goal. So when somebody does put the link in the chat for me, please go ahead, click on that link, sign the letter so it goes to your representatives, and then share that link with your friends if you could be so kind. If you share it with one person, it helps. So when the Social Security Administration is gutted, who gets hurt? It's your grandparents in the Bronx calling for help and getting a busy signal for hours. It's our neighbors in Buffalo waiting months for disability benefits to be decided, if not years sometimes. It's our veterans waiting for hours in the Albany office. It's almost 75 million people across the United States, and that number is only growing. Applications for benefits are up over 17% because people are panic filing because they don't know what's happening. In the capital region, our Schenectady field office lost over a quarter of its frontline staff. They were bullied out the door by DOJ's threats of leave now or risk being fired. The administration prattles on about generational wealth, but Social Security is losing something vastly more valuable: generational knowledge about benefit programs, policy changes, and training techniques. Social Security employees are being pushed to the brink. We're forced to do more every day with less, while being blamed for systemic failures that are being caused by political neglect. In fact, a couple days ago, the agency just kindly sent a memo around to remind staff that we are no longer allowed to help beneficiaries with online access to their MySSA account. Instead, we have to refer them to a different government website with complicated verification procedures. I actually tried to log into the website myself on the public side recently. I now have to wait until my next day off to drive to the post office with photo ID so I can get verified for access. And it's just a minor inconvenience for me. I can only imagine what it's like for people with mobility and transportation challenges, or what it's like for people who didn't grow up learning computers in school. The administration wants you to believe that public service is broken so they can hand it off to private contractors, profiteers, and their political cronies. But us New Yorkers are fighters. We're survivors, we're organizers, and this is us sounding the alarm. The Federal Unionist Network, or FUN, sponsored an action campaign to tell your representatives to save our Social Security. Even if you haven't needed to talk to us at Social Security yet, you will one day. So please Click on the link in the chat when they throw that in there and add your name to thousands of others who have sent letters to representatives to rescue Social Security from the clutches of greedy billionaires. AFGE and our labor allies are pushing back in court, in Congress, and through coalition building like this call. In April, AFGE put out a call to action for local governments and organizers to stand with us and pass a resolution to support the constituents and keep local services open and staffed. I need every organizer, every leader. I am sorry about the dogs barking. They're all wound up like I am. So every leader, every person who cares about dignity and fairness and the public good to send me an email. My email is jessicalsweet123@gmail.com. Again, it's jessicalsweet123@gmail.com. And just ask me how you can help. I can get you in touch with people. I can get you in touch with that resolution. We want to light it up. We need you to write and call your representatives, show up at council meetings and town halls, demand that your local representatives start showing up and showing out for the seniors and the disabled individuals in their district, and insist that they oppose federal and state cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security services. And before I sign off the call, I want to remind all of my fighters on here with me tonight that it's never too late for a plot twist.
Thank you so much, Jess. A couple of just quick housekeeping. We're running like about 10, 15 minutes over. Stick around after we hear from our next speaker, our Hudson Valley organizer, Isaiah. We will be hearing from Lieutenant Governor Delgado, who will be closing out our call with us tonight. We are also going to have follow-up emails after this. If there are any issues with any of the links that we've dropped in the chat or any forms that you're having issues filling out, we will troubleshoot those before we send a follow-up email tomorrow to make sure that you have all the information from this call and you don't have to just soak it all in your brain. So I'm super, super excited to introduce our next speaker, who is our Hudson Valley Network organizer, Isaiah Fenchel. Kick it over to Isaiah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, April. Thank you, everyone who's spoken before. Just recapping, hi, all good evening. My name is Isaiah Fenchel. I am our lead network organizer for the Hudson Valley for Citizen Action of New York. I live in Poughkeepsie. I am an organizer, right? What I'm here to do is make sure that our folks are getting involved, getting organized, and making moves on the ground. And tonight, I am very excited to be on this call and talking with y'all, right? It is what a time to be alive, what a time we're living in. Right now is a time to make history. And we are sitting at an inflection point in our country where we got to decide between where we've been and where we're going to go from here. It's a time where racial, social, economic, environmental justice, all the things that you're hearing about on this call are at the forefront of what we're doing. And what we do today will build a better, more equitable world for tomorrow. And it's never been more important that we have elected representatives and leaders who are willing to stand up and fight for us, but also leaders who are willing to come sit and listen to what the people want to hear instead of just what's politically expedient, right? I want to really get us grounded in where we stand. The margins are so close. And in the midst of all this chaos, we're this close to the world that we want to live in. With the power of the people, with us getting on the ground and organizing, with us doing the work that we all do in our communities and have done day in and day out, we can shift the balance and put a stop to MAGA 2.0. In Washington, D.C., the House of Representatives is literally decided by a difference of 4 votes. So, I want to stress that a lot. Ursula showed a picture before of the 6 Republican congressmen in New York State. It's a 4-vote difference in the House of Representatives. In places like Long Island, Staten Island, upstate New York, where I live in the Hudson Valley, we have several Republican seats that could literally flip control of Congress and put a stop to all of this. And so what I often tell folks is that in the Hudson Valley, it's a perfect microcosm of what's going on in the rest of the country. And what happens here will set the tone for what will happen for the rest of the nation, right? And the reason I say that is a perfect example is the 17th Congressional District, where Citizen Action's been doing a lot of work on the ground, organizing with amazing partners and coalitions, some folks on this call, others who couldn't make it here. But I want to really up this district, right? This district has rural, suburban, urban communities all of it made up of so many beautiful people from different backgrounds and races and ethnicities, religions, all of the things, and just as much diversity in our politics, right? This place is also a place to some of the wealthiest towns, cities, and counties in New York State, but also some of the highest levels of income and economic inequality in the nation. And what's becoming unfortunately clear is that the Republicans like Mike Lawler and others who represent districts like New York 17 are only interested in fighting for the wealthy elite and could really give a damn about the working class people. And my apologies, y'all. I'm a little bit fired up, ready to go. So if I start saying some bad words, don't hold it against me. But while pretending to be a moderate, right, people like Mike continue to show that they are bought and paid for by special interests. He refuses to meet with constituents in districts or at his office in DC. He has literally ran from and avoided constituents to their face. He's gone as far as to have people forcibly removed from town halls by police. He's denied the press this last Sunday from covering the event where he might be held accountable for the decisions he's made. And the worst thing of all of that, the worst decision, if you ask me, is that when this big bag of BS, that's what I like to call this bill, when this bill came up for a vote for the entire House, Mike Lawler was literally the deciding vote, which could mean that in his district, over 30,000 people could lose access to healthcare. Another 10,000 people could lose SNAP benefits. Another 5,000 people could just lose their jobs because of all these cuts. And that's why we're on the ground, on the front line, trying to take back our democracy by taking back New York. In coalition with other community leaders and organizations, we're fighting to stop the cuts to critical programs, things like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, Section 8, all the amazing things that you've heard about tonight, right? We're trying to stop the cuts to that. And we're also doing the work to educate, activate, and organize our communities to stand up, get active, and fight back across all levels of government, whether it's in local politics at the state level, or like I said, in DC. And every week, hundreds of people have been attending actions week after week after week to fight for our country. Places like Peekskill, Nyack, Tarrytown, Mount Kisco, West Point, all over the Hudson Valley. Folks have traveled to Mike Lawler's offices, both in the district and in DC, to demand that he stops the cuts and stands up for us. Unfortunately, he hasn't done so yet. But in the Hudson Valley, we're throwing ourselves into this fight to demand that our representatives bring boldness, integrity, a sense of justice, and most importantly, a willingness to serve the people and not just a select few. And that's really our North Star here in the Hudson Valley, right? That's our North Star for everyone on this call. That's what we want. And tonight, I'm very happy to have sat on this call to waited. Tonight, we're honored to be joined by a man from the Hudson Valley who embodies exactly those principles we want in elected representatives. He's continued to champion policies that fight for working class people and communities. In Congress, he's fought for everyone from farmers and veterans to small business owners and children without ever missing a vote. And as lieutenant governor, he's been committed to showing up in our communities and standing up for justice, even when it's not convenient. And, a personal, I used to DJ, was a rapper once upon a time. So as a hip hop artist, I also got to acknowledge he's used his platform to fight for justice and to speak truth to power at any chance he gets. And as he continues his journey in politics, it seems to be a running theme. And I really am super honored and pumped to introduce and bring onto the call partners in power. Please welcome us in welcoming our Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Antonio Delgado. So I will gladly pass it to you, sir.
Isaiah, thank you very much. I very much appreciate the effort, the work, the dedication, the passion that you bring to the table. We've connected a number of times on the ground, and I very much appreciate your commitment to this moment and what's required in this moment. And I want to just acknowledge everybody on this call, Citizen Action, and the agency that you all bring to bear is so critical in this moment. It's very, very easy to be dispirited. It's very, very easy to be cynical and to throw your hands up in the air and just say, none of it matters anyway. And you're choosing the road of real resistance. And it's uncomfortable. It's challenging. It requires sacrifice. It requires vulnerability, as we've heard from so many folks over the course of this evening's call, sharing their stories and the impact. It requires feeling the pain in a way that can be unsettling. But when you speak truth to power, as you all are dedicated to do, as I am as well, you know it's going to be hard because power doesn't give up power on its own, especially when power is in a position to consolidate and abuse itself for the betterment of itself at the expense of the people. And that's what's happening right now in Washington. We have elected officials, particularly on the Republican side of the aisle, who have given up their own power, given up the power given to them by the people, and have capitulated and have bent the knee to Trump in fealty and in a morally bankrupt way at the very expense of the people that gave them the power in the first place. And it is cruel, it is cowardly, and it is shameful. And we have to be willing at every turn to elevate the plight that is about to happen should this bill make its way through, and do everything we can to stop it from happening. I believe I heard an individual earlier say, and I like this, there's always room for a plot twist, and I agree. There's always room. It's not over until it is over, and we are far from over here. We must continue to work, continue to fight, and we know in New York, as laid out before, the cuts that are coming from SNAP to Medicaid can be devastating to millions and millions of folks all across our great state. And to know that these cuts are really just about enabling a tax cut for the wealthy, enabling a tax cut for the rich, is beyond treacherous. And it is something that cuts against politics fundamentally and gets right to the heart of morality, what is right and what is wrong. And we have to be in a position here in New York to hold up that banner for what is right and what is true and what is just, and fundamentally recenter ourselves and recenter government, for that matter, around the people, not around profit, not around greed, not around corporate power, not around big donors, but around the people. And I think it's important as we think about this moment and all that is on the line, that we imagine what is possible too. Because as we reflect on how it is we got here, let us not ever disregard the key fact that right here in New York, we saw the largest swing from left to right in the entire country. In the entire country. So we're losing people here in New York. We're losing believers in democracy. We're losing believers that we can have a healthcare system for all, that we can have childcare that accounts for everybody, that we can have housing that's actually affordable. We're losing that belief is actually attainable here in New York, particularly where here in New York, we have the largest wealth inequality gap in the entire country, while 1 in 5 kids are living in poverty. So you see, here in New York, when we're not fully funding our healthcare system before the cuts, we know we can do better. And we must do better. And I know every single one of you have understood this for a very long time and are about that fight. So it's not just a moment of protecting what is on the line right now, but it's also acknowledging that we can be better, and we must be better if we want to build a broad coalition of individuals who will hold the line and project us into the future in a meaningful way. Now is not the time to walk back who we are, whether it's in the climate space, whether it's in the housing space, whether it's in the childcare space, whether it's in the healthcare space, whether it's in the immigrant space. We need to hold the line, and not just hold it, but transform it. And be bold in this moment. We didn't have to be here. We did not have to be in this situation. And I've tried ever since I've been in Congress and ever since I've been lieutenant governor to always put the people first. Not party, not partisanship, not power, but the people. And you all have the power. You have it in this moment, and you know that. Citizen Action, you understand that. You know your power. So continue to lean on that power. Continue to hold on to that power tight, and continue to exercise that power, so that when you speak truth to power, the power of that truth is actually felt. because there's nothing more powerful than the truth, particularly when the people collectively tap into that power, collectively articulate that power, and collectively elevate the truth. It's a real moment of accountability right now. It truly is. And there's no better place to wage this war of accountability, this reckoning, if you will, than in New York. We have a responsibility to wave the flag for progress. We have a responsibility to elevate what it means to make progress in this country. And we have a responsibility to capture and re-excite those individuals who have felt abandoned and left behind and believe that the status quo that we're trying to protect is actually broken already. So why is it worth protecting in the all? Why? We got to do this work, and we got to stand aligned with each other. And I'm excited to stand with you throughout this process, to fight with you, to be out there at these rallies with you, speaking truth to power and making sure that you have a real partner in this endeavor. If ever there was a time to really lay down for what we believe in, this is the time. So thank you very much for the work that you all are doing every single day. I stand with you, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. Something I heard recently from a justice advocate was even the choir needs to be preached to. And I think that is so important for us to stay in this fight, is to feel both the hope alongside the fear. You can't be brave unless you're afraid of something. And I just so appreciate you helping build power with us, and we're so grateful to partner with you in fighting to keep New York a just state. So thank you so much for joining us. I am going to drop these links one more time in the chat. As the Lieutenant Governor said, you can get plugged into our work. Thank you so much for sticking with us tonight. We only kept you over about 15 minutes. Thank you all for bearing with us till the end. Like I said, we'll be following up with an email tomorrow with all the links and all of the information, as well as a recording of this call. And we hope you stay plugged in. We'll be sending emails all the time, not too many. We promise not to flood your inbox, but we'll be sharing information about local events happening near you, calls that you can make to your congressman, things that you can stand up for to fight against this administration. And we're so happy to be in the fight with all of you. Thank you again so much. I will drop the links one more time. Check out our website at citizenaction.org, citizenactionny.org, all one word. We're on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. Check us out, follow us, and we'll get you plugged in. We're so excited to meet more of you. And if you filled out our volunteer form in the chat, you can look forward to an organizer reaching out to you before the end of the week. We really want to get you feeling empowered and taking this energy that we've built here tonight into the next steps and get you plugged in your communities. So thank you all again. Have a great night.